I photographed a solar eclipse a while back, and it taught me more about God than I ever expected. I had a solar filter on my camera that blocked out 99.999% of the sun's light. That means that only 1/100,000th of the light of the sun was actually getting through the camera. And even with all but that tiny fraction of the sun's power filtered out, the early pictures still looked blown out like this. So I changed the settings to let even less light in, less light than I had ever tried to take a picture with. And even then, the pictures looked like this. Just over 1/1 millionth of the sun's normal brightness was reaching the camera. If I had taken the solar filter off and tried to shoot the sun directly, I would have run the camera sensor in seconds. Before the eclipse, we heard endless warnings about not looking at the sun without proper eye protection. But when the eclipse actually came, there was no temptation at all to look directly at it. It just would have been impossible. Even at the height of the eclipse, with most of the sun blocked, the light was still too intense to even think about looking at. Our sun is unbelievably powerful, and the brightness of our sun gives us a picture of the white hot holiness of God. God is infinite in power, total perfection, indescribable in purity. He's beyond our comprehension, almighty, eternal, unchanging, and above everything we know or will ever discover. And as bright as our sun is, it's far too small to serve as a real parallel to the awesomeness of God. It's only one star, and not a particularly large one. One star in one solar system, in one galaxy, among hundreds of billions of other galaxies. God isn't just more powerful than all those trillions of stars combined. He created them from nothing and effortlessly sustains all of them. So, what exactly are we going to do to impress a God like that? How impressed will he be with our accomplishments? How much would we have to work to deserve his attention and his love? We can't. God is not impressed by our efforts, by our vanity, or by our self righteousness. Our best works on our best days, with all of our best motives, fall infinitely short of his standard of perfection. We can't do enough good. We can't rely on our morality or our accomplishments, our money or our reputation. And we certainly can't ignore him and pretend that eternity isn't coming. It's on its way. So we need someone to save us. And I hated that message when I first heard it as an 18-year-old college freshman. I knew it meant giving up control of my life. But God was drawing me, and eventually I realized it was the only thing that made sense. I gave my life to Christ that year. This is the message we heard from Jesus and now declare to you. God is light, and there is no darkness in him at all. Light, by its nature, dispels darkness. Turn on a light in a dark room and the darkness disappears. It's not personal, it's just what happens. Someday we will all stand before God in the unfiltered light of his purity, holiness, goodness, and power, a light infinitely brighter than the sun. And there will be no protection for us except the unearned grace that Jesus offers. Romans 3 says, we are made right with God by placing our faith in Jesus Christ. For everyone has sinned. We all fall short of God's glorious standard. Yet God, in his grace, freely makes us right. God presented Jesus as the sacrifice for sin. Jesus did everything needed to make a real relationship with God possible. We can respond with belief, gratitude, service, worship, and love, but we dare not take it for granted. And all of this ties in with how we communicate with God, how we pray. It can be intimidating to realize the limitless scope and the power of the God that we're addressing. The God who created trillions of stars is the God that we pray to. And in one sense, that should humble us. But in another sense, it's incredibly freeing. If we take God lightly, our prayers will feel like they're bouncing off the ceiling. But if we begin with the right perspective, aware of how undeserving we are and how infinite God is, something amazing happens. God sees us humbled before him, and then he lifts us up and allows us to interact with him like a father speaking with his children. I believe that was always the plan. God absolutely deserves to be treated like an unapproachable king. But the name he chose for himself again and again in the New Testament was Father. See how very much our Father loves us, for he calls us his children, and that is what we are. When Jesus taught the Lord's Prayer, he began with, pray like this, our Father in heaven. Remember God as Father. Honor him as holy above everything in the universe he created. But start with the fact that he's a father, a good father. All of this brings us back to one simple truth that I live my life by. God never hears us because of how great we are, but because of how great He is. And that's the only thing that gives me confidence when I pray. He doesn't hear us because of our goodness, but His goodness. Our relationship with God was started by grace, and we don't have to maintain it by works. We can't. That doesn't mean that God doesn't value the good works. It just means they don't earn us a relationship with Him. God's initiative frees us to come before Him confidently and eagerly as dearly loved children. And that knowledge can revolutionize how you pray.